Hey, all you out there in Righteous Rebel Land. Some of you may also be seeing us on LinkedIn or YouTube. We welcome you as well. And also extend an invite to you to, if you're not a member of the Righteous Rebels group, head on over to Facebook, hit the join group button, and we'll hit the we'll let you in button. We would love to have you be a part of all the things we're doing and not just our weekly live and unscripteds that take place on Wednesdays. So with that said, we're just going to jump right into what today is and get us in the now, right here, right now, the space where we can let inspiration be the guide, which is how we do these conversations. I'll ask one question in the beginning, and our guest will answer that question, and then we just allow inspiration to take over what happens for the rest of the hour. In order to help with that, we're going to ask and invite you to become present with us, which is a letting go of everything that's happened already in the day and a letting go of what you think is going to happen in the remainder of the day and bringing you to right here, right now, where the magic happens. We're going to take just a few minutes and do a box breathing exercise, which is a pattern where you're going to breathe in for a 4 or 5 count through your nose. Then you're going to hold that inhale. You're going to release that exhale through your mouth for the same counts, 4 or 5 count, and then you're going to hold the exhale. What I love about this exercise is it's simple. It can be done anywhere. It can be done anytime as a way to, if you're finding yourself in just like a crumpled up mind or you're finding emotions starting to get high, you can just pause for a minute and breathe and slow down your thinking, slow down your heart rate, and get really present. Where again, you can actually hear what's going on inside of you and make decisions from a much healthier place rather than out of just pure emotion or whatever it is that you're feeling in the moment. So this is your invite to get really present with us so that this conversation can be as yummy as possible. So as you're breathing in today, I'm just going to invite you to just think about, what do we want to have you think about today? Let's have you think about something amazing that you're looking forward to. How about that? We're going to breathe in the amazingness of something that you're looking forward to. And as you're breathing out, just let go any doubt that thing could actually happen. Or that you can get past any obstacles that might be in the way of that thing. So breathing in something that you're looking forward to, breathing out any obstacles or what you might feel is inability to get around them. So I'm also going to invite you to do this with a downward gaze or closed eyes, whichever of those feels most comfortable and safe for you. And with that, we're going to do the first one together. And then I'll just invite you to do 2 or 3 on your own. And then we'll kick off and bring our guest on board and get the party started. So with that, take that downward gaze or close eyes. Take in that first breath through your nose, 4 or 5 count. Holding that inhale. Releasing through your mouth. Release as much as you can. Holding that exhale. Awesome. The next ones you're on your own. So go ahead and start again. In through your nose. Really soaking in the thing you're looking forward to. And as you breathe out, releasing any doubt or obstacles that it may happen for you. Good. Go ahead and do one more cycle or finish up the one that you're in. And when you're ready, feel free to open your eyes and come back to right here, right now, where again the magic happens. And I'm going to invite you just like notice how you feel. versus how you felt 60 seconds ago. I always love this because I get on here and I'm excited. I'm a little bit ramped up or a lot ramped up. And I love this moment of just feeling myself calm, feeling how I'm sitting in a chair, feeling how my sweatshirt, like I can feel it on my shoulders. I can feel the coolness of the chair underneath my feet. I can feel myself want to wiggle a little bit in my chair because it spins. And just the calmness that allows me to like lean in to what I'm about to do so that we can bring you the absolute best that we have to offer. I would love to hear in the comments or reach out to us in the ways that you know how. Preferably in the comments, because by doing that, you never know what doors you're going to open for other people to be brave and share as well. And you probably have something really cool to say, and we want to hear it. So, what was this like for you? How did you experience? How is this something that you can now take into, if it's not a practice that you use often, how can you take this little exercise and move it into something that you do daily or several times daily, and how you feel like it might benefit you? Whew. So with that, let's get started. Oh my gosh. So I actually have very little introduction on our guest today. Her name is Kate Burke. That's pretty much what I know. Okay, I'm lying to you. She actually is an amazing soul who, after I've told you, we had a 90-minute conversation a couple weeks ago, and in less than 5 minutes, I was like, wow, this is a person who has got to be in my circles of influence and in the things that I do. I was introduced to Kate through my cousin, who is part of a lodge. He's ownership of a lodge, and I was sharing with him some of my big dreams and adventures that I want to create. And he said, "Let me put you in contact with Amy." So he put me in contact with Amy, and then Amy said, "No, you need to talk to Kate." So then I started this conversation with Kate, and it led over the last couple of months to finally having a phone conversation to where I actually got to feel her heart and hear her experience. And I'm excited today to find out what has made Kate the person who she is today, because I'm telling you what, you're going to love her. She's a river guide. She has woofer certifications. She lives in a really amazing place of this country, Hood River. If you've never been there, you're gonna don't go there. You don't want to go there. No, you absolutely want to go there. And she just has a beautiful soul. So with that said, I'm just going to bring her on. Kate, you're going to get your own countdown here. There she is, Kate Burke in the flesh.
Hey.
In the flesh. I know.
That's such a nice introduction. Oh, thanks.
Pretty good for not knowing that much about you, right?
Yeah, well, that's what this is for.
I love it. So I was telling her, I'm like, this is a platform where we just get to go by inspiration. And I love that she was like, I'm all about it. I asked her if she had any questions. She's like, I don't even know what to ask. But when I do, I'll ask it. And I was like, that is so perfect. It's so absolutely perfect. So, Kate, tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, how you got into river. Actually, don't go into how you got into river guiding, because we'll probably catch that in the. But what are some other things you would
Sure.
want people to know just off the bat?
Um, you know, I grew up in between Kansas and Oregon. So my mom lived in Kansas and my dad lived in Oregon.
I was going to say,
Um,
that's a big geographic space. Okay.
yeah, so really like right off the bat, I kind of like whenever I would come to Oregon, my dad would take me to the coast and we'd go like exploring and just see like all this nature and wildlife that I didn't really get to see in Kansas. And Kansas is beautiful too, by the way. It has
Right.
one of the last tall grass prairies. But anyway, through that, I really developed just like this love of just like nature and the outdoors was like inherent. And I was also kind of like really aware of like the drastic difference, right? Like that I wouldn't be like introduced to these kinds of things if I were just in Kansas or vice versa. So kind of like immediately, I think really young, I knew that there was like just this privilege in being able to be out in nature. And then from there, I kind of just spent like the whole rest of growing up figuring out how I could be closer to that and maybe like, turn from a human to be a wolf instead or something and be adopted, like
Right? Oh
I
my
was
gosh.
just like, this is human life is the wrong life.
I
And so
I love Okay, so I'm gonna pause you right there because you must have felt my first question, like the only question that's actually planned, and I'm just gonna ask it, and we'll just because you've already kicked it
yeah.
off. So for those of you who are new to live and unscripted, I only ask one planned question, and because Kate's already started answering, I'm just gonna ask it and then let you continue. And the question
Okay.
is this: what were you like as a kid?
Oh my God. Yeah, well, okay, so that's yeah, this would be the defining characteristic. There's two really that like my parents, I get a lot of input. I have four parents, right? Because they
Right?
remarried and divorced when I was really young. So I have like a lot of input on myself as a child
That
from many adults.
I cannot wait to hear that just
um,
because so many as of us have that same experience, and when we reach that place of wanting to know ourselves, it can create some interesting experiences.
Yeah, it's like it's interesting having people recognize things in you before you recognize them in you, it's like really interesting and you're like, huh, like that is still very true today. Um, so yeah, one big thing was just like I was obsessed with like, I mean, I was like convinced I would cry sometimes because I was like mad that I wasn't born like a bear or like an animal. And I just thought this was like the wrong way of being. So there was like a period of 2 years. My mom never tolerated this, but when I would go to my dad's house, where I legitimately crawled on all fours, I made them feed me food on the ground, and they called me I made them call me Toto, like the dog from, The Wizard of Oz,
Yeah,
and, like, that was, like, my being. That was, like, my personality. Like, in public, it would be shockingly horrible for them. Like, I would be on all fours, like, I refused to eat with the family, like, at the table, I had to, like I, like, just thought, I guess, like, it's really embarrassing, but actually,
you
it's like, I really think that I, like, imagined maybe, like, this could like, this is wrong, and, like, this is right.
so I
So
love it, and I love that you're saying, like, "This is a little embarrassing to say," but I'm loving that this is like, my mind wants to go like, "Oh my gosh, I totally wanna jump into her mind and have an understanding of this," because there's lots of people who feel like they should be something else, or if they're not in the right spirit or the right so that you're saying is like, "I love this.
totally.
I crawled on all fours and I actually forced my family to
Yeah.
feed me," like, that's how you but here's the cool part is that they allowed that to happen.
Yeah, they did, they tolerated it, totally, and I think they, like oh, yeah, they, like, let me, I would go home and there would be, like, clippings my dad would clip out from the newspapers, like, what was going on with the wolves in the region and, like, what was happening with orcas. I was, like, really obsessed with orcas. Um, and then on the flip side of that, my mom, she was an artist, and she is an artist, and actually, both of my parents are this will be like a hole we won't go into, but both of my parents are Olympic medalists in water sports
That's really cool.
from 1984. So like water is like really inherently in me. They're both like very intense people, like and like really creative and just like never really wanting to do like what so it's like it's really not a surprise that I was just like that like won't work for me. Like I'll
Right.
be a dog. Um and the other that they would say is that like so one time we went to the aquarium. I was with my dad and my stepmom and we went to the aquarium in Oregon and they bought me this stuffed animal orca to like remember my time there. And I asked them if I could take the stuffed animal back to Kansas with my mom, right? So I could like take it home with me. And they were like, well, we were really hoping you were like, you would keep it here so like we could watch, like they wanted to watch me like enjoy this toy that they bought me here,
Right.
and I said, I think they said I was like 6, and I said, "Are you saying that I can't or that you prefer that I don't?" And she said, "I guess
Wow.
I'm saying we prefer that you don't." And so I took it.
Because they still left it open for choice.
Right, and so
That
I've
is
always, like,
incredible.
been a negotiator, and, like, I think just trying to, like, always, like, turn things so that I can be, like, living in the life that, like, I thought, like, should happen, and I don't know why, like, I guess when you ask about childhood, like, that's one of the biggest things that, like, I always remember is, like, always, like, swindling my way and, like, okay, well, like, how and then that just continued, like, through my adult life, with, like, everything pretty much, just, like, how can I, like, make this happen in the way that I think it should instead
Okay,
of how
so
it does.
I am so, like, fascinated and blown away right now that this is how this conversation has started because be and here's why, because we've been talking a lot about, following your heart, knowing your own heart, knowing what it
Yeah,
knowing what your own voice sounds like, and, you know, and you're like, "I had 4 parents who had influence on me and wanted to, you know, could see things," and, but that at that young age, you knew like, that's pretty wise. Are you saying I can't? Or that you prefer that I don't? Like, most 6-year-olds will be like, "Yeah, whatever, I'm taking my toy," but that you had awareness of that and that you said you've carried that through. Lots of people, sometimes myself included, like, it's like, do I what are you saying? And do I dare live the way that I feel like is right for me? Or do I do the thing that's going to make everyone else happy? Like, do I leave the toy here because I know it's going to make you happy? Or do I honor myself and take it with me
yeah.
because it's a memory of being here? Like, I love that this is how this has started because it's so, you know, part of what we do, we tell people that we eradicate zombies and we bring people and their ideas to life, back to life. And I love that you're like, you know how to live a life.
Well, it's like I mean, don't get me wrong, like, it's a struggle, and I think one of the
You're
things
human.
that we lose as we get older, which is, like, so funny, right? It's like the older we get, supposedly, like, the wiser we are and, like, the more we know, but I think that also the older we get, like, the less we learn to trust our own authority. Like, like, how many times a day, like, I notice myself all the time, like, "Oh, should I buy this? Like, should I do this? Like, well, like, mom, what do you think? Or boyfriend, what do you think? Or, like, best friend, what do you think? Like, do you like this? Do you think should I do this? Like, should I go for this?" And it's, like, so interesting because I just feel like when we're younger, it's just like, no, this feels right, you know? And, like, you
Yeah.
almost like, there's just almost a sense of, like, almost this, like, intuition that it's like if somebody is challenging me, I almost think that, like, it's something worth doing, and that, like, obviously that goes, like, both ways, like, bad and good, but I
Right.
think as we're, like, adults, it's, like, so amazing how it's, like, all of a sudden it's like we have to get all this, like, approval from it's like there's gonna be some, like, signed letter from the universe at the end of the life that's like, "You did this correctly, like, good job," you know? And, like,
Right.
that's not coming. Like, we don't
Well, and
there is none of that,
that goes to,
and
like,
nobody
the
can
question that we ask
yeah,
often is it allowed? Like, is this allowed?
right, yeah, and it's like, turns out, like, there's a lot that's allowed, and it's just, like, ourselves that says that it's not.
Right?
Myself included, like, all the time. I think that's, like, one of the biggest, like, challenges and battles in life, I would say, is,
So,
like, just giving yourself permission.
absolutely, permission. That's such an interesting such an interesting concept, like, that we want it for someone else from someone else, but we just struggle to really give it to ourselves. Um,
Yeah, and we're the only one who knows, right? If it's, like, good for us or if we should, really, like, we really are, like, the best person to ask, but we're, like, the last person we trust,
right? So, as a
and, like,
kid
when
go ahead.
Oh, no, go for it.
Well, I'm seriously, like, I'm loving this right now, and I cannot wait to play. It makes me, like, I can't wait to play with you more. Um, it's the whole concept of like, I've been having conversations of, I don't know that I was as a kid taught to trust myself. It was be obedient, trust the authorities, trust your parents, do what you're saying, what they say. Um, and somehow I had a knowing somewhere inside me that I wanted to do that part differently. And I
Yeah,
taught my kids, like, you're the most important person to trust. Like, even over me, like, I can teach you,
that's
but
awesome.
I'm only teaching from my experience and what I think is good for you, but only you
Right.
know. And how I love again that your parents gave you, even your mom in her own way, gave you space to be and play around in that energy as a kid so that you at least knew it more growing up and moving through all the stages where lots of people just don't. They don't have
Yeah,
that gift.
that's so awesome that you encourage that in your kids. And yeah, my mom as well. Like, I mean, growing up, I mean, so I was like very, very like horribly terrible at math growing up.
Okay.
And but like really good at English. Like I loved English and everything. And I remember there was like taking an AP English class in high school, and my like little high school boyfriend and I were sitting next to each other at the time, and afterwards the teacher came up to me and she said, um, your tests are so identical, like I'm gonna throw them away. And and she called my mom to like let her know like what was going on, and she's just like, and my mom said, sounds like you need to talk to Kate. Like she would never ever
Oh my
take on
gosh, it's so
any like
amazing.
conflict for me. So this was like anytime there was like an issue. And of course, then I'd be like, well, we'll retake it tomorrow and we'll see. And of course, like, he did really poorly in the second go around. So but it was just like that attitude of like she never it was like never checking on me for my homework, like never. It was just kind of like, which I think is um like growing up, sometimes I would see like other people's parents and I'm like, oh, you're like giving them snacks and like getting them on their homework, and they're like doing their project with you.
You're
And
sitting
then,
right next to them while they do their homework and doing it for
yeah,
them.
right. And then like I realized, after a while that I was like, wow, like what a gift, because everything, like she allowed me to fully experience the results of like everything I did. So like it was like experiential education before I knew what that meant. But it
Yeah.
was just like, okay, like you don't want to study for your thing, like you're gonna feel what it's like to like not know what's going on in class. Or like if like, or if you're like having an attitude with this teacher, or like you guys don't like each other, like I'm not going to come to bat, because like what can I do? This is something like you have to work these out like with human beings like in life. And so yeah, even though I talk a lot about like my dad and like how he helped me foster all of that when it comes to like crawling around on the ground and stuff, but there was something about my mom that was always just like kind of like, I'm not going to baby you, because like you like, I know you're so much more capable of that. And it
She
and it
let you be
felt
the wolf and the bear in her own way, like to
exactly,
those
yeah.
instincts of how to interact with your surroundings and the people. And
Yeah, and I think that like empowered me to be like, okay, like I do know something, and then like I said, it's almost like the older you get, like the more input the world gives you, and then that's like when that becomes harder. It's like that starts, like your intuition becomes like muddled with like, oh, now
absolutely.
there's social media, and like now there's like jobs and people and like other things out there. So it's like uh yeah, it was like a very safe place to like cultivate that like individuality. And then it almost just like, as the world grows, you get older, it gets like harder and harder to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
Oh my gosh. Okay, so wow, that I'm like I'm blown away. Um, I want to go to when did you talked a little bit about junior high, like when did you decide kind of like what you thought you wanted to be, like junior high, high school, what was it that you wanted to be? And are you doing that now?
Oh, no. Well, yes and no. So, I kind of I knew I wanted to be, well, of course, I decided, that I would be, studying animals or, something to do with them. I just, wanted to be, in the wilderness as much as possible. And so that was always kind of but the rub was that I was really terrible at math, and I knew that, a path of a biologist or anything like that would require me to do, chemistry and everything like that. And when I
Right.
say I'm bad at math, I mean, I stopped taking math classes in sophomore year in high school, and it was, against all of their recommendations, they're like, "This is gonna hurt you in college," and all this, and I
Sure.
was just like, "Look, it makes me feel terrible." Um, and, I think, looking back, they're probably right. I probably should have stuck with it. But I just I was like, okay, well, I'll lean into writing. And so the idea was well, I'll become like a writer, like a science writer. And that's what I went to school for. I went to school at the University of Oregon, their journalism school. And I I studied environmental journalism and multimedia. And it was the way that I thought about it, and this goes back to right, how can I twist things to be my own?
Right.
I was like, okay, well, this is writing is easy for me, and also photography. I've done photography and documented everything in folders and taken pictures since I was 15, um, just religiously. And of and it, at first it was just school. I would take pictures of people in school and all that. And it just always kind of grew. And so that was I was like, okay, this is natural for me. And the way that I felt was that if I am writing about it, I don't have to be the expert. I can just ask anybody anything and go on a boat with scientists and follow them while they get me in touch with orcas,
All
instead of
right.
having to be the scientist. And also because I had so many different interests, I couldn't figure out where to focus. There was so much grief in college of oh, should I be a psychologist, or should I be a biologist, or this or that? And so I kind of did a little bit of everything. Um, but ultimately, I had no idea. There was kind of a crux moment, and before that, this kind of serendipitous thing that happened, and before that I really had no concept of there being outdoor education, or that you could lead outdoors. I would go on my 16th birthday. I was like, I want my mom, I want all the ladies. So I was like, I want my mom, my grandma, me, my sister. I was like, we're going river rafting. And this is before I knew anything about whitewater. I had no idea, but I was like, I would always look at the rivers and be like, oh, it's so wild and cool, and I want to do that. And so we all went river rafting, and I loved it. But in my head, I was just truly oh, I could never be like a guide. That would be so cool, but that's so far away from my I would have to start, it's so funny because I was 16, but I'd be like,
Like
oh,
you were.
I'd have to grow up in this world, that's how it felt to me. It was so foreign. And that also there weren't women doing it really at that time as much. I mean, there were, but they were very few and far between compared to now. So really that whole world of um like confidence and experiential learning and leadership in the outdoors, I had no idea existed um until about my sophomore year in college, and then things kind of blew up.
Man, I wish
um
I would have known when I was young that that was an option, because I have days I have a bachelor's degree in speech language pathology and audiology. I mean, I learned a lot of cool things about stuff
Dang.
I never knew I wanted to know, but it's not the stuff I want
Yeah.
to use. And sometimes I feel like I miss my calling.
Yeah.
So listening to you, I'm like, dang, maybe I should go back to school, or I'll just learn from you. But I love that you that you had the opportunity to find it and come back to it.
Yeah, I think, it's hard because I do think so what happened is man, this feels so weird to like talk about myself for so long. I've never done anything like this
I
before.
I'll tell
But
you, you're doing a fantastic job and you're on a roll. Just keep going.
but you know, back to like kind of my personality, I was like, I need to go somewhere in college. I was like sophomore year, and I was like, I'm gonna go to Africa. Like I'm gonna go like basically like anywhere. My parents were like, "Ugh, why?" And I was like, because
But
there's
don't go
like so
there.
many animals there. Like there's like so like there's sharks there, and I just and I like couldn't find really like the right opportunity through my school to go there. There wasn't like a focus that I was interested in. And then all of a sudden, I was just like, I didn't care if it was like study abroad. I was just like, send me somewhere like that I can just. I just always felt like really disconnected. I think from like the way society operates, and I just like wanted to go somewhere where like it was different and just experience that, right?
Right.
Like outside of like my family vacation. So then there was this trip to Peru that came up.
Oh, I love Peru.
And yeah, and it was like, it was this kind of like it required you to take this global citizenship class. And it was like we were gonna go to Peru, and like instead of going and like donating things or like we were gonna just basically, it was the community that was driving this project of building these sustainable toilets, and then like we would go, and the idea was like we were learning from them. It wasn't like we're gonna go in and like save you guys and give you money, you know, it wasn't like that. And so that really appealed to me. And through that global citizenship class, the the person who kind of came and led our class was a man named Eric Boggs. And he had been a national outdoor leadership school teacher for a long time. So he spent like years and years in the backcountry teaching people like leadership and things like that, right? Something I never knew. I was like, what? Like, what is your job? And he'd been like all over the world doing this and in the outdoors. And I really just like was glued to him the whole time, just like, how did you do that? And like, what did you, I mean, I'm such like a question asker. And you know, he would be like, God, just chill out, you know, give me a second. Because I was just so like, whoa, like I didn't know you could get paid to like just go
Right.
camp, like be outdoors.
Right.
Like that's crazy to me. And I wasn't in like any outdoor programs or anything like that. I was like, I just didn't know those were things, you know. It wasn't like now here living in Hood River, it's like, I mean, my partner, like he grew up kayaking, you know. His parents were guides. Like that's out here, it's like so funny that that's like, it's like that's just an option. And I just had no idea that that was an
Right.
option. So my world was like blown open. And then when we got back, um you know, like I stayed in touch. He worked at an experiential education school for youth, and I'd like volunteer there. But anyway, I got this email from him that was like, "Hey, I need a female leader for this backpacking trip for incoming freshmen. You don't have to know anything about backpacking. I just need the leadership. Like, I'll cover all the outdoor stuff for you. Like, can you come on this trip?" And I was like, "Hell yes, I'll come on that trip. Like, yes, I will." And then it turned out that I was like pretty good at like the outdoor stuff too. And I just like was so full from like empowering me. Like it was just so fun. Like I got to be like goofy and like got to like engage with these students and like have these real talks. And I was just like, whoa, like experiential education, like that's where it's at. Like this like wilderness, it's like people. I actually like people. Like, what's this? This is cool, you
Right.
know. And so like that just like lit up a fire where I was like, I can do this for work. That's insane. And by that time I was already then kind of like the once I was like, whoa, like I discovered this is amazing. And I discovered like the outdoor program at school. And then this like shadow kind of came over me where I was like, I'm behind. Like,
Ah,
like people are here who've been like climbing and like backpacking and like rafting and doing all this stuff for years. And like I have, you know, like none of this experience, like none of these like certifications or credentials. And by the time this happened, it's like now, you know, like getting to my senior year in school. And so I was just like feeling really like, it's so funny now because I know it's not late, but it felt late. It's like, oh, I found this like too late,
Right.
you know?
Right. And I love that piece of we find it exactly when we're supposed to find it.
Right. Like, I mean, yeah, in any other way, it like couldn't have, I mean, I gained like such an interesting bunch of skills from that one mentor who then like hired me. And I ended up working, he was the head of our experiential education program, and I ended up working for him in school. Um, and then that led to like, well, then I was leading those other trips, like, so to like Jamaica or to like different places through them. Yeah. And so it was kind of like, oh, this like, and he was um like really grooming me in terms of like, hey, like I'm gonna dump. It was just like the right time. Like he was like, yeah, here's this knowledge that like I want to share, and like this experience, I'm gonna like pass this on. Um, and then when I graduated, I went to go take a national outdoor leadership course for outdoor educators, and it's a month long, and you're with 10 people. And so for a month, you have no access to anything. It's just like you in the backcountry. And so it was 2 weeks
The
kayak.
Knolls.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like 2 weeks kayaking and then 2 weeks backpacking, and in between a bus just like dropped off your backpack and like took your kayak away, and then you'd like go away, you know. And it was just like I flourished, you know. It was like I loved it. I loved just like everything about it, like the people, the like I felt it was like, oh, this is something I feel like tangibly like it fits me, you know, and I'm living out here. Um and that's like I just got swept up in that world. Still didn't know about whitewater at the time. That was like not I was like all about the ocean, right? I like wanted to
Right.
be like, if I could do math,
Animals,
I would be a marine
wildlife.
biologist. Like
Yes.
I was like, oh, like anything that can make me like a fake biologist, like I'll get into. And so it fit for me because I was like, you know, I can learn about all these things and like teach these students, but I'm not, you know, like doing scientific data or anything. It's just like, oh, like here's how we coexist with them, and like here's how we manage like interactions, and like here's why they're important. So it was kind of just like cheating like my way into biology to me. Um
Just
which
finding
now
another way.
you finding, yeah, like it's just like, well, okay, like here's like all under the guise of being an outdoor leader, like I actually just get to like spend time in nature with animals and like also watch other people get stoked on it. And so that kind of like swept me completely away. And then I spent the rest of like forever, like every job thereafter, it was like I would get hired to do like marketing or like digital design or like advert, you know, things like that I have the skills for. And then I would like work my way into like, well, um, like my first job out of college was for Outward Bound Costa Rica. So I moved to Costa Rica and I was working in the office for Outward Bound there, which is like another outdoor education
Right.
program.
Right.
And it was like this package that we had where it was like, well, you can go on one of our courses. And then it was like, well, you have these days off. And all of a sudden I was kind of like wheeling and dealing, like every single day off I had, I was like
Are
on a
you telling
course.
me no or telling me
Exactly. And like I was like, so the certification ones, so I was like, so do those count? And like, you know, they're just like, Jesus, like I guess, you know. And so the time that I was there, like I really thought I was going to go there and like have all this access to sea kayaking. And then I went there and realized like, okay, I'm actually living in like the middle of this like tiny mountain town, and there are sea kayaks here, but I have no car. There's no way to transport them. And like, we don't actually really use the sea kayaks. Like we don't even, the courses like don't, you know, but what we did live with was like a ton of whitewater guides. So like really, really good, these really good kayakers. Um, and they just like rip out there, like they're just like doing all kinds of like they were, I was just like, whoa, like that is crazy. That boat is tiny and like, you are in the water. Like, I want that. And so I just kind of like, slowly got into that. I had no idea like what they were putting me through at the time. Like, now I would look back and be like, that is not safe. But they thought it was hilarious. They were all like Ticos. I was like working with all Ticos. And so they were like, I love watching this gringa swim, like they would just think it was hilarious to just like kind of like F me up a little bit. So, and I also loved it. I was like, I'm down to get beat
Right.
down. And
Well, you
so,
don't know what you don't know. So it's like, okay, they're
right.
just trust
Like,
them and that they're putting me in the right
totally.
places.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not thinking about like things I know now, like, oh, all these like hazards and whatever. I was just like, that's fine. I can get kind of like chundered underwater. That's like, I'm fine with that. So,
That just makes me go like, that does actually make me like just a little bit, not gonna lie.
well, luckily that's a different level. Like, that's not something I would do to anybody. Now, just getting
Oh,
into it.
yes.
But it just like so happened that like, like I mentioned earlier with like my parents being water people, like my dad would when I was like really young, I mean, the Oregon coast, like super cold, like he would show me how to dive under waves and like how to like deal with being, like in the water. So the water was really like I was comfortable,
Yeah.
in that element already, and that helped. But so that's like how I discovered rivers. It was really just like at the time they were just like the best next thing if I couldn't get on the ocean.
Gotcha.
Um, but then it kind of like took on a life of its own. And I think like when I look at then that like it was kind of like, oh, experiential education. And then I was like whitewater, and then it was like everything was about the feeling that I had being on the river. And that kind of just like it's so funny that I look now at like my job because I totally like I'm still trying to like transition out of like river life, and like
Right.
go like be a writer for, or like a wildlife photographer. Like those are still like my dreams, but it's like I just got like taken by this wave, um and I can't be mad about it because like it brought me so much that I never like had expected ever to like come into my life. So it's just, yeah, it was like it was never the path, it was like never the plan. I'm still like trying to get on that plan. But it was just like this thing that came in and like came with like a whole world came with it. And I was just, it's like Narnia, it's like, oh my, whoa, like anyone else like see this closet you can walk through and like you can go do this and
Right.
feel this? Like that is crazy to me, and so I just kind of like got all swept away in that, and I'm still in that current trying to like I'm like, well, I kind of want to eddy out over there and like still go do that other stuff, but it's a strong current.
Well, and I love that you just the piece where you're like, I have all these other interests. I still want to write. I still want to take pictures. Like that's still a part of me. My soul, it's in there. It still calls to me. And
Yeah.
like I got on this ride and I didn't know where it was going to take me. It just swept me up. But that you allowed yourself to go there. You trusted that. And I love that you said it's brought so much into my world and that you're aware enough to know that maybe it's not quite time yet to completely like leave the river in the ways that you're doing it or have done it and trusting. I'm making an assumption here. You're trusting that that other stuff, the water will move you, the current will move you where it needs to go,
Yeah.
and when it's time, it'll move you into those eddies that will be more. This that speaks so loudly to my own heart and to what we're wanting to really help people get a feel and understanding of is that life has a flow and our spirits know and it will if we trust it it will take us to those things but we get to do a lot of other things along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. There's gosh, I think I wrote it down so I might look it up, but there was something
Yeah.
I read the other day that was like I keep this like whole thing of like quotes. I'm so that. So it says Yeah, okay. I did write it down. It's latest thing I wrote down. It's a wise person takes things lightly and does not insist that things should happen in any particular way.
Whoa.
And
Okay, will you read that again slowly?
yeah,
And I know
uh,
Leah's watching. Leah, will you write this down, please?
it's a wise person takes things lightly and does not insist that things should happen in any particular way.
Oh
Um,
my gosh, I love it.
So, like, even though I have like all these little like whimsical things, like, oh, I want to be a dog, but they weren't like silly to me. They were like really serious. I was like, this is how life should go. And like, I was spent a lot of time being like upset and like frustrated, like, why didn't I grow up in this world? Why wasn't this like,
True.
if this is like what feels right, like, why wasn't I put here? Um, and I really still struggle and did struggle a lot with that, like it should happen this way, like it should happen this way, and it should have happened this way,
Right?
and it should be happening this way. And like learning to let that go is just an ongoing process. But I think that it's so funny because like once you do, it's just like the taking things lightly, it's like take this step lightly and like go with the flow. I mean, not I'll use kayaking metaphors until I die, but it's like, you know, the thing is if you slow down and you're slower than the river, like all of a sudden it's like you're not going to be going anywhere good, right? Like you got to
Right?
stay in the flow. Like you have to use it to your advantage. Otherwise, like if you try to fight it, like you won't win. You're not going to you're not going to win. Um Even when it's scary, like, and it's like one of the best things you can do when you're kayaking or rafting is like lean forward, and it's exactly the time when you want to like lean back because it's so
Like,
scary.
whoa, right?
Yeah, you're like, oh, I don't know, and that's exactly the time to be leaning forward. And so there's just so much to that, and I think I spend a lot of time like undoing, yeah, just like wishing that like things had happened differently, like wishing that I had like learned this earlier, or wishing that I kept taking math, or
Right?
like all these different things. But it's like, man, maybe I'd be in a lab right now instead, and I wouldn't have like any of this like wonderful wild life experience that I've had. So
And there's a possibility that our paths wouldn't have crossed if you're hanging out in a lab, which
Oh, I mean, definitely not. I think this one thing that whitewater taught me and experiential education taught me is that I love people. I love people. I thought I hated people. Like when I grew up, I did. I told my parents, I was like, I'm never getting married. I'm gonna have 10 dogs and I'm gonna live alone in a cabin. And they were like, okay,
okay.
sure. you know, and
See how that works out for you.
and now I'm just like, through all of that work and stuff, it's like, oh my God, I just love like watching people light up. I think people are so interesting. That's like why you and I connect. I was like, oh, this woman, she like knows what's up. Like she like, you just like, it's like people that are like in your like Milky Way flow. I
Yeah.
love that. And so, and part of what my job now does is like inherently connect me with those kind of people, like who are seeking the same thing. And so I think that's what the community has like really brought to me ultimately, is like a bunch of people who like also were like, you know what, like this is the way. Like,
Yeah.
and it's not something that's like ever, like sports that are taught to us when we're kids, or like paths that are shown to us when we're kids. It's like almost funny because what's special about, like whitewater for me and like getting into that world is like somebody found their way there intentionally. And if they were raised in it, it's so there's a choice that they made, like to stay in it. Or a lot of times what happens is like they'll be like, yeah, whatever, parents, like, I'm not going to do that whole like rafting or kayaking thing. And then later they like go back to it. And it's those kind of people who are like seeking, right? It's like they're
Yeah.
seekers. Um, and I think recently I heard this idea that like these people, I think like you probably, and like myself, and probably like a lot of other people who are listening who are like always seeking, you know, to find like the answer, like what is it about, and like what can make this like meaningful. And the idea that like maybe our job will like always be to be seeking, and that it's like never really to find it.
Yes,
and
because it
and
keeps leading
I'm
us to new things and
right,
expansion and growth and just like, wow, there's
exactly.
so much to experience, and I wanna experience it, and I want other people to
Exactly.
experience it.
Yeah, and just, like, remembering that there's time, you know? So, I don't know, that all kinda, like, went into a little tangent, but,
It's perfect.
um
Kate Kate, how young are you?
I'm 31.
Yeah, you're a freaking baby who is
I
like
know.
who is wandering around with this amazing, amount of wealth that a lot of people your
Aw.
age don't. And I'm just gonna ask you to receive this, which I think you know how. A lot of people your age just don't have. And I just am gonna say thank you. We're not done yet, but I'm feeling this deep gratitude for the experiences that you've had and the upbringing that you had and the places that you've gone that have brought you to this place that we were able to connect and that we're going to create some freaking awesome things together and
Yes.
to like sit and listen to the calmness of your being and just the experiences that you've had that have brought you to this place is so nourishing and filling. And I was so excited to have this conversation because although I didn't know exactly what, again, I don't know what these conversations are going to look like.
Right.
I had
Yeah.
such I just had this feeling of like huge excitement to because I knew it was an opportunity for me to get to know you better. We had a 90-minute phone call that was mostly about business. And but I felt
Yeah.
and I just want to say thank you for being the wise soul that you are and allowing yourself to actually experience that and then to share it. It's incredible, and I'm so excited to have you be a part of what we're doing, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. But I do have
Good, I can't wait for that.
have two questions that I want to ask. Are
Yeah.
you okay? We're going to go a little bit over time. Are you okay with that?
I'm good, yeah, I did my obligations earlier, we're chilling.
Okay, awesome. And for you listening, you're welcome to pop off if you need to, or to just grab a little bit more drink and a little bit more snack and hang out a little longer because I really want to get to these couple of questions and then tell you about what we're creating together, how we've kind of roped Kate into what we're doing. Actually,
Happily so.
we didn't have to rope very hard. She pretty much volunteered.
No.
I was so grateful for it. But the first question is this: what is do you feel like is one of the biggest challenges that you have overcome?
Mm, I think, uh, well, I could definitely tell you one of my biggest challenges. I can't say that I've like quite overcome it
That,
yet.
that's
I
perfect.
think I think one of the biggest challenges, and I've kind of like alluded to it a little bit throughout our talk, is that I think that maybe like all of us a little bit have these kind of like two selves, right? There's like the like inner self where we're like, oh, I'm just like drawn to this. Like I know that this is in me. Like if like there were no external factors, like this is just how things would be. And then there's like the part of us that has like families and like relationships and like real life and like um I think one thing that was a challenge that I learned pretty quickly was that this like life that I wanted to pursue meant that there would be a lot of sacrifices, and that like I wished I could just like bag up everyone I love and like bring them with me and like show them and be like, look at this, like we could all live like this, like, you know, like we could all do this together, like
If
all of
only
us, like
everyone
you could.
wanted to.
Right. It's like, you know, like my sister and her husband, like they're in the Bay Area and have like these like really like important like high level jobs and they're, you know, and it's just like I can't, you know, or like my just anyone like, you know, I mean relationships like had been struggles or where it's just like look like, you know, and so I think one of the biggest challenges is like integrating the two selves, and how do I spend time like not being like angry or frustrated that like I have to kind of tangle with this other life, which is like paying rent in this house and like going through all the motions of being human and like and then also seeking these experiences. Like there's just a lot of highs and lows, you know, that come with that. It's like
Yeah.
the higher you go, like the lower it feels sometimes. And
Yeah.
the transference, right? We'll talk about this when we have like our experience, like the transference is like it's can be difficult. When you're out in the wilderness, like it's so simple, like you have exactly what you need to like to survive and like to thrive, like you have your like systems are easy, like you can really get into rhythm with yourself, you're really feeling yourself, like there's not a lot of distractions. And so I think one of the biggest challenges for me is just crossing back and forth between those two planes and figuring out it seems like I always like have a slight crumbling when I'm like re-entering society. And just grappling with the idea that like the world isn't just going to all of a sudden like live that way. And I'm also not exempt from other parts of being human, like you know, the desire to have a community
Right.
and you
Right.
know, like and like a home or thinking about my future. So you know, that challenge. It's like it's not very like existential, but it's just very real.
Yeah. Well, as you're talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know this feeling. Like, I don't know that I know it the way you've experienced it, but I know how I experience it. And I feel like I see and experience the world differently, probably than a lot of people. Nature totally calls to me. I think for the reasons you talked about is it's just simpler, it's slower. You know you have what you need, or you can get it, and um, just getting back to those like wild pieces of ourselves where we know and we feel and or we want to. And I always say, yeah, but I wear this stuff called skin, and it kind of muddles all of the sometimes peacefulness of that and the easiness of it. And I think it's got to be hard. And when I step back in, or I can't find the words to express how I feel inside in a way that, everyday living kind of require it. Just, I feel you. I feel you. And I appreciate you sharing that.
Totally, yeah. I think it just goes back to the same thing, like with we were talking about being our own authority, right? Like all the inputs. Like, well, now we have all these inputs. Like when we're a little bit more removed, like the inputs are a little bit like maybe more internal.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a lovely feeling when you can get to that,
Yeah.
just kind of you feel it's more settled. It's just,
Oh, yeah.
you can breathe.
Totally.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. The next
Yeah.
question is, what's something that you're just proud of?
Oh, I'm just proud of making this stuff happen for myself. There's like been a lot of times when I felt like it was an uphill battle. You know, they say like be careful at what you get good at. And so I have like a really systematic brain and like logistics and all of that like work really well for me. And so there were a lot of times where like it's like, well, we don't really want you to go like out into the field. We like need you here talking to people and things like that. So, but it was like always this push to be like, no, this is where I want to be. And like, if I don't have the skills, like I will build the skills. And I think the process of like becoming somebody who doesn't know anything about like the outdoors and like whitewater specifically going into it, it's a butt kicker. Like you, it takes a lot of ego checking and just like physical beat down, emotional beat down, and just like the telling yourself like it's okay, like I deserve to be here, like I'm allowed to be here, um even if I wasn't like born into this. And so I feel proud of being able to just like own my space in this world. And when I look back and talk about like childhood, like you were asking me, and it's funny because I wasn't like really expecting to talk about that. um I I get disappointed sometimes. I'll think about like my life so far and I'm like, God, I thought it would be different. My partner and I have this joke where like I'll always say when I'm having a bad day, I say, wasn't it all supposed to be more beautiful than this? And sometimes I like have those days, still. And I think that most often though, when I look back, it's like I'm still true to like what I wanted for myself.
Yeah.
It's like I'm still out there like fighting for, you know, like the wolf pack to come get me still. And I think that's something that I forget, but I'm really proud of when I remember it.
I just think it's so beautiful. And um I just appreciate the elements of your story that you've shared. Just how easy it was, and that you just took it and ran with it, and it's so beautiful. And that you still say that you feel that like you're still waiting for the wolf pack. And as you said that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just felt like it's coming. It's coming. Like you're calling your wolf pack to you, because even the thing that we're doing. So for you, the listener, uh, Kate's my point of contact for the river rafting trip that the Righteous Rebels, so Leah and I have created through the Righteous Rebels. And again, our contacts have been mostly through, I was like, how do I want to say that? Our contact has mostly been through email and just like really business like, because that's
Yeah,
the things
logistics.
we had to figure out first. And I had to be willing to say, holy shit, am I willing to take this ginormous leap and financial commitment? And do I want to sign my name to this thing? And be in the old thinking of like ball and chain, and can it happen, and all these things. And then I had this beautiful opportunity to actually speak with Kate. Wow, that just made me emotional. To speak with
Yeah.
Kate and to actually feel her, and to feel this. And now I have a better understanding of what I felt, and to be able to say to her, I'm scared. Like this is scary for me. Not necessarily the river, although there are pieces of that, because I haven't lived on the river, but I know that there's so much value and education, and I love the experiential lessons that can happen there that bring us back to ourselves and to our heart. It's more just the commitment of me committing to myself to do the things I said I've wanted to do, and to bring other people into themselves and into their own hearts through in experiential ways. And to be able to say to Kate, I'm scared. Like this scares me. And she's like, okay, cool. Guess what? I can help you. And then she starts telling me her background, and she's like, I'm so excited for this. And you just said this, and I know how to do this. And it was just this beautiful, synergistic energy. And then she's like, I have to be a part of this. Like, I have to be a part of this. And I'm like,
I was like, I'm coming.
right? She's like, I'm there whether you want me to be or not. And of course we said yes, because we felt it. And that's part of what I love about what I'm wanting to create through business is I'm not a fan of all the traditional ways that we're taught to do it. And I want this to be something that when people come to my business or the things that I do, that they meet people who will fill them. They meet people who will nourish their souls, who will help fulfill the investment that they have made in themselves, both financially and through time and through sacrifice, so that when they leave, they are not the same person. Like, these people are seeking for something inside themselves. They may not even realize what they're seeking yet. And to be able to build a team and have Kate say, I want to be on board with this, it's just, I call them God winks. I love the being able to have synergistic energy with the universe. Again, it's an energy. I'm happy to call God. You're welcome to call it whatever you want to. So Kate is actually going to be part of our river trip in August for leaders, right? And here's how we're defining leaders. Leaders is, if you're born and you're on this planet, you're a leader. A leader isn't someone who, it's not a title. It's not something that you work your way
100%.
into. It's not a reward. It's something that you are born with. And it's your right and your privilege. So whether or not you lead a family, you lead a classroom, you're leading a community group, or you're leading a corporation, we consider you a leader, and this trip is for you. We've also decided to make it is going to be all women for this one. We are going to be in conversation about creating one for men as well. And it's multi-generational, because we feel like there's so much value in the young interacting with the more elder and vice versa. There's so much wisdom to be had on both ends. And so this is a 6-day, right? 6-day, 5-night river trip where you're going to get all kinds of experiential learning about self, about leadership, about who knows. I mean, there's so many things. We're leaving it open to inspiration, but there are going to be pieces that I can't wait. Like, I don't have words for the amount of excitement I have. Kate, how about you?
Yeah, I feel well, like we were kind of talking about, as soon as like you and I connected, it's like that's that other thing, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm not done with this, this aspect of things, because this is like really what lights me up. Because spending, I mean, especially like this amount of time, like we don't ever take time to spend a week with ourselves and other people. When you're out there on the river, it is intimate. It is intimate with yourself. You're going to be so in tune with what you're feeling, whether that's like, whoa, like it's like joy and bliss, or discomfort, or like nerves, or like proud, so proud of like all, and then being surrounded by these people who are experiencing the same thing that you are, where you can exchange a look and you're like, I know. And that's something that we don't get enough in our daily lives. And the thing about it is it's not just the 6 days. It goes way beyond that.
Thank you for saying that. I was like, we gotta say this.
Yeah, it goes way beyond. It's work that you take with you. I mean, like, there's I'm like a quote lady again. Here I am, and I'm gonna like misquote it, but it's basically the idea is like, well, every time you climb a mountain, you have to come back down. And so like, really, what is the point of climbing the mountain at all?
Oh my gosh.
And it's because you remember what you saw when you were up there. And that informs how you,
every level, like always changing.
Exactly. And it's going to inform what you saw up there, is going to inform the way that you are down here until the next time you go up. Right. So it's just exactly how it is. It's like, you'll be able to like uncover and acknowledge and actually have the time to like sit with these parts of yourself and see these parts of yourself uncover. I mean, when we think of leaders, we think of, right, like maybe we think of like, oh, people who are really good at talking in crowds, or really good at like riling people up. But no, like, but every team needs different leaders structured in different ways. Like maybe you're really good at like molding the group together. Like maybe you're really good at these, like managing these relationships, or maybe you're the person who takes a step back and isn't saying very much, but you're looking at the whole situation and thinks, well, what about like maybe this way quietly,
Right.
you know? And just how we can take these parts of ourselves and see how they are needed. Like we're so needed, and such a part of the universe and the way it works. And it just like all it just comes to life when you're on this kind of expedition where it's like no distractions, like from yourself, and also, like, by the way, like immense beauty all
Right.
around,
Pristine
right?
country.
It's just it's not a week. It's like a week that will bleed into everything else that you do from now on. And I've done enough of these. I've been doing this for about 10 years, and I can tell you that it will bleed into everything else that you do. Like it won't leave you. And
I love
that's
I love that you're saying that, because when I first started having these experiences for myself, I remember how I felt, like as if they happened yesterday. And I remember thinking,
yeah.
wow, I can take this experience. I could feel myself changing inside of the experience itself. And I remember the first time I stood on top of the Grand Tetons and I thought, oh my gosh, there's no way I can ever be the same. I can't ever see things the same. But what's cool is I can now take this experience and overlay it on top of, it's that transition we talked about earlier, overlay it on top of my everyday life and be like, wait, I did that here, or I felt that here, so I can feel it in this space too. Like it like can influence, and I love that you use the word
Yes.
inform. It can inform what I do here in my everyday life until I get the next experience. I love that piece of it. And that you said that it's not just a week, it bleeds into everything is so true. And when we talk about value, I think that's the piece. This stuff is an investment of time and money. And that's the piece to remember is you're not just investing in an activity, you're investing in your life.
And
And it's something that will, I love that, bleed into everything else you do. You're not investing in a week, you're investing in your life.
yeah, there will be like things you uncover that you can't recover again, and things that you learn that you can't unlearn, that you won't want to. And in fact, the frustrating part will be the hardest part. But don't worry, because during the trip, we'll talk about this. The hardest part is going to be leaving and feeling like, how do I translate this to
Right.
everyone I know? Because I am a different person now. I have experienced this. And that is the hardest part. But we will get through it together. And it's also so cool because it's like I said, I mean, the best way I can think about it is it's like I got the letter for Hogwarts. Like, did you guys know there's wizards out there? Like, that's how it feels, you know? It's like there's this other, like, the life in us. There's this, like, whole other dimension that we get to uncover and then, like, live in the world with this knowledge, that this exists. And it gets to just, like, color everything that we do, and give just, like, a new meaning and purpose. And I just feel so passionately about how much this does for people. We are going to laugh and probably cry, and we're going to be scared, but then we're going to be stoked. We're going to rest. We're going to feel tired. Uh, it's it's you're going to feel yourself,
Yeah,
and that's
you're gonna get it all.
an incredible gift that we don't give ourselves. And that really, like, out here in our daily world, like, this is the harsh environment, you know, this is the harsh
Oh my gosh,
environment
I
out
love
there.
when you said that.
That's like
Yes.
that's our home, right? Like, we're gonna go home for a little and, like, rest up and, like, get full.
Yeah.
And then when we come back out here to where it's hard, we can call on that.
Oh my gosh. We're at an hour and 46. Like I said to you when we talked before, we could just talk forever. This stuff like
I know.
so
I'm like, I'll talk
lights my
forever.
soul. You speak my language. And for you listening, can you feel it? Can you feel it? Like, can you feel the excitement? Can you see the excitement? Can you let it rumble that place inside you enough to go to the site and click let me in, get me on the river? Like, let us. And I love the piece of the coming home, because that's important for me, is this coming home. And I love that you used nature and this experience as home, the place where you can come for rest and play and nourishment and just retreat, refill, and then step back into the harshness of living an experience with skin. And
Yeah.
thank you for putting it in that way. Oh my gosh. I don't want to end. I don't want to end.
I know. I'm so excited. I'm like,
Well,
let's just go.
we'll have to
do
just
like a
do this.
pre-trip.
Yes, I'm like, we'll do this again. We'll do this again as we get closer to the trip. And probably
Yeah.
just for advertisement's sakes and letting people know we'll do this again. Thank you. Thank you for everything you have contributed today. And not just today, but everything leading up to today. If you were to leave the listener with just like a last little yummy nugget of wisdom, what would that be?
I would say that we all have, there's like a little voice, right? That's always like calling us to like do the thing, right? And it might be like this trip, but it might be just like, oh, I want to be a this, or I want my life to look like this. And we have like all the reasons in the world, like to reason, well, but, or I don't know, or I just need more. We think we need more knowledge, more this, more that. And then what I challenge myself to do, which I'll challenge everyone else to do, is what if you just believed that you could do it? What if the whole world was like, you know what, it's impossible for you to fail at this. It is impossible for this to be a wrong decision. How would that make you feel? And act from that feeling. Because I think that's the most true situation that there is. Like, I don't know if this is like the right investment for me. Like, what if it's a waste of money? Or I don't know if I should leave this job. Like, what if it's the wrong move? It's like, what if it couldn't be wrong? What if what you were feeling couldn't be wrong? And ask yourself what kind of freedom that gives you. That's something actually that my stepmom taught me, and it's an incredible way to live.
Yeah. I'm dying right now because I'm like been asking myself this very question, or these very questions. And the inside battle sometimes that comes with that, especially when, we're not taught to trust ourselves or to listen to ourselves, and we have all of the other voices coming in, or whatever it is. And so I really, me personally, I really appreciate the reminder of just the what if it couldn't be wrong, and what kind of freedom would it give you? I think
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful and absolutely perfect way to end this.
Just lift it from yourself. Just like, what if you can't be wrong?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just love you. Like
I know.
Be in presence together and share some hugs and share stories. And
I know. I
listening to
can't
you talk
wait.
more. You and I will be in touch for sure. We got a lot of things to figure out. But for you, the listener, thank you for being here with us today. I want to acknowledge that there's a lot of places you could have been today, and that you chose to share it with us really means a lot. I want to say, I hope you got something from this, but I'm just going to say, I know you got something from this. There's so many yummy nuggets, and just huge thank you to Kate for being willing to come on and share her experiences, even the ones that felt a little embarrassing, because there's so much value in that. And I want to encourage you, the listener, to recognize that there's so much value in that. Our stories are important. They have so much meaning, and they become more meaningful to us personally, but to the world at large when we are willing to take the risk to share them and to
Yeah.
recognize that other people need what we have to offer that way. And so, oh my gosh, until we do this again, Kate, thank you so much. I will be in
Thank
touch with
you
you to
so
set up our
much.
next meeting with Leah. And again, thank you to you, the listener. You again can find this on the Righteous Rebels page. If you're not a member, get over there and join, because that's where we're going to advertise a lot of information, especially in regards to the river trip and another trip that we're doing at the Salmon River Lodge, and other cool things that we're doing. And I just want to remind you that you have worth more than you give yourself credit for. And you're far more valuable than you think you are. And you can do far bigger things than you ever thought you could. And it's just about taking that risk and going with what Kate said at the end. What if you couldn't be wrong? And what kind of freedom might it give you? I love you so much. I appreciate who you are and what you bring to our community. Remember to be bold, be brave, be a rebel. We'll see you soon.